Your voice, your ideas, your thoughts. Listen to Jax Engage with Angela Spears every Saturday at 3. Hot topics, events around town. We discuss ideas that will have you talking. Saturday afternoon, live at 3 on FM 94.7, AM 1360, online at thevictorystation.org, or download the Victory Station app. Tune in to Jax Engage with Angela Spears.
We drove just far enough to...
Welcome and thank you so much for listening to Jax Engage. I'm Angela Spears. Happy Saturday. It is a beautiful, beautiful day. I hope you are enjoying it, and I so appreciate you spending part of your day with me. Tell your friends about the show right here on 94.7 FM and AM 1360. You can also listen live online at thevictorystation.org or download our app, The Victory Station. I have a wonderful, wonderful show on tap for you. Some students are here in the building. Oh, wow, I love it. I'm a Star Foundation. Let's move. That's what we're going to talk about. These kids are going to tell us about healthy eating, healthy living, and get us on the right track. I also have someone calling in to talk about a church starting a brand new ministry through the arts. Starting off the show with me is Joey McKinnon. How are you, Joey?
I'm doing great, Angela. Happy Saturday, and thanks for having me.
And you're here to talk about, just a variety of things, including ways we can get involved at the grassroots level when it comes to politics. So important. But we have to start off because we also have another little special visitor here with us today, Mara McKinnon. We're not going to bother her, though. How old is she?
Mara is 14 months old this week. And Angela, I was so excited when you said bring the baby with me, because we're here to talk about today families and making sure they get a fair shake with some of the policy coming out of Congress. So it's really great to be flexible and bring my baby to your show.
And it's so important. My producer and I, we were just talking about this. I usually have a lady on. In fact, she was on last week talking about being a mompreneur, and how sometimes when you're at work, and I just work with a lady, it's this true, just this past week with redoing my website for my company. And, she always says that sometimes when you're there handling business, the kids in the background, and you have to say, sit down, okay, be quiet, okay, give me this, and yet you're still trying to work and be professional. And sometimes that happens. That's why I told you, Joe, and you said, well, I may have to find a babysitter. I may not be able to make it because she has to come along. I said, bring her. Plus, even though she's 14 months, she'll never remember this, but still it's starting her off and encouraging her at such a young age, isn't it?
Well, that's right. And you'd be amazed at the things she picks up that we talk about even at 14 months. And so I'm hoping some of the things we talk about today, maybe she'll pick them up and want to run for office one day.
So when she starts crying, listeners, we'll know. She's right now just looking at me. Her dad's holding her. She has her pacifier. So Michigan little sister, you ready? In case she starts crying, you can come in and grab her. And we even listed the students from I'm a Star. They said they'd run in and grab her. So that's a good thing.
That's right. We've got babysitters here today. Angela, the listeners can't see this, but I just want to do a shout out. We are both wearing Clemson Tiger jerseys. Mara is in her pink Clemson jersey. I'm an alumni of Clemson, and we watch the daddy-daughter thing every Saturday. Also did my master's at UGA, so nobody in Florida likes me very much.
But that's okay, because, we talk about the Longhorns all the time here.
There you go.
Because I'm a Longhorn, so that's so important to talk about that. So good to see, and it's good that you're spending time. And it encourages, I think, those parents who have children and who want to do something or who have a business and they say, you know what, I just can't because I have my kid with me. That's not an excuse, because so many times people are flexible, and children, you want to have them around and encourage them.
That's right. You said mompreneur earlier. I would classify myself as a dadpreneur. One day a week, I have the flexibility, and very blessed to do so, to work from home. And so I have Mara, and I can tell you, I am hitting the mute button on a lot of conference calls very quickly when she decides she wants to let everybody know she's there. But I'm so blessed, because it's great to have that day every week that I know a lot of dads don't get to do, to work and be with their child.
And that's so important. So important to do. Very, very important. So I'm having you on, just like I said, to talk about a plethora of things, families, dadpreneurs. So I'm glad you were able to mention that. But there's so much going on at the federal level. that people have questions about, and you're really involved in the political scene.
That's right. And, speaking of families, something that was really on my mind this week and is very timely that impacts working families is the tax bill that's currently making its way through Congress. The House just passed their version of this bill on Thursday. The Senate is currently working on it. And, it's a common tactic that we're seeing lately to do these controversial bills right around a holiday. We've got Thanksgiving coming up, and so I was kind of disappointed to see that there appears to be a rush job and
Do we see
not
that
some
often,
of the usual.
Do you think? Is that typical?
It's something we've seen locally and federally, and I can't speak going back years, but I can say that over recent months and in this current administration, that has been a common tactic. And so with the rush to do this over the Thanksgiving break, we're expecting a vote in the Senate right after the Thanksgiving break. That doesn't give a lot of time for the nonprofits and the people and the working families that are most impacted by this bill to really have the time and the capacity to look into it and see how it impacts them. So I was hoping to try to share that a little bit with listeners today.
So what can we do? And I want you to get into some of the details, the meat of it, but what can we do? My listeners, what can we really do? Because a lot of times you feel hopeless that, I call my lawmaker, because sometimes I call mine and I know someone who works with a particular lawmaker. Sometimes I call and I just let her have it. I'm like, okay, here's what I think, blah, 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 blah. Now go tell him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, Angela, but there are processes, there's steps, there are things you have to go through.
Well, it is very important to call your person in Congress. Now, with this particular bill, it's already passed in the House, so the best way people could be engaged is to call their senator, and that is Senator Bill Nelson and Senator Marco Rubio. Call their local office, send an email, because I can tell you my first job was for a senator. I was a Senate page, and I kept a tally. That was what I did. I kept a tally of what people were calling in about that day, and it really matters. I know.
Does it really? Because we think that it doesn't.
I think people feel like they aren't heard because money interests and special interests seem to get their way a lot, especially in today's political climate. But I can tell you that there are great people on the ground in Jacksonville and across the state in both of these senators' offices, and they do care about working people's problems, and they do listen to you, and they do everything you say. They report that up the chain, and if there is a big quantity of people calling in on a particular issue that they're not used to hearing this kind of groundswell of people, they really take note of that.
I was told, and someone shared this before on the show, that if you call, if you send an email, if you send a letter, send a postcard and not an actual letter, because it's easier to get through the process there in Congress.
It's easier to get through. These are people that are very busy, so bite-sized is always better. Writing a book is not as good as a blurb, and I've also heard that handwriting letters is more meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So get to the meat of some of this to share with my listeners and then we're not telling anyone what side to vote for, yes or no, but we just want to share facts, because that's what it's about, and then you can decide what goes for you and your family.
Absolutely. And but I do want to frame this for working families. So listeners have certainly heard over the past few months that the politicians, particularly the Republican Party, is very interested in passing a tax reform bill.
Yeah.
And so that's tax cuts. And, money in the pocket of working families is something that I think anybody could get behind if that were, in fact, what it accomplished. The House version of the bill passed on Thursday, and the Senate bill will likely go to a vote shortly after Thanksgiving. And I'll kind of pull from both versions of the bill. But they're similar in a lot of ways, and there are a few key differences. They're similar in that the outcome of this will be $1.5 trillion in debt. 1.5 trillion increase to the deficit over the next 10 years. And that's really troubling because, Angela, you and I might not be paying on that, but Mara here will, and that concerns me a great deal. Number two, there are a lot of giveaways to the mega rich and to multinational corporations, and not very much is in there for single mothers and working families and those of us like myself that, find ourselves on the lower end of that totem pole. And so just to kind of give you a couple of examples, the Senate version of the bill, one of their signature pieces of this is a tax cut to families. And the talking point of there will be a tax cut is true. But when you actually dissect it, it's a little more troubling. So a married couple with 2 children that earns $500,000 a year, so that's a lot of money, $500,000 a year, they will get a $4,000 tax cut. Now let's look at a single mother with 2 children that earns $14,500 a year. Now this is someone is lucky if they're making ends meet, and if they are, it's just barely. They get $75. That is a huge difference between economic classes and the benefit that they get.
And it's so important to share the facts, to share things with people so that we do understand. Right?
Right.
And then is something too, calling your lawmaker, and we know all politics starts local too. This is obviously just on the federal side, but as you mentioned, to call your lawmaker, right? If you have questions, is there still time? If people still have questions, can they still call the senators?
Oh, they have plenty of time to call. Like I said, this is, we're coming up on Thanksgiving break, but send an email, write a postcard, and give a call between now and Thanksgiving. And I do think that people's voice will be heard. I'd like to give you a couple more examples of some of the tax breaks coming out of this bill. So what I gave you was really one of the least offensive parts of this. I mentioned some giveaways to the mega rich and multinational corporations. Angela, we have tax breaks for private jets in this bill.
Oh, wow.
Now that's great, and I don't knock that, but I do encourage them to find a way to give a tax cut. Imara here has a toy airplane at home if they can figure out how to do that. Another one that has been much talked about in the news is the estate tax, and that is basically if you if you have assets and you pass away, you want to pass that on, that, some of that gets taxed. And now this impacts really just the upper of the upper class. So the tax break with this bill will move that threshold of those who will benefit from it from an individual that is leaving $5.5 million to approximately $11 million. So most working families I know won't see that benefit because we're short of a $5.5 million threshold by about $5.5 million.
How can people really, really get it? I mean, like I said, one thing is to call the lawmakers, to call, to write. I have heard so many people within the last year saying that they're ready to make a change. They want to make that next step. What advice do you have working on that ground level, the way people can really get involved or feel that they can make a difference?
Well, one thing you can do is get involved with your local party. And you can
Whether
also
it's Republican, Democrat,
Republican or Democrat, just encourage that you focus on good policy. And then another thing you can do is we have many wonderful nonprofits locally that are helping people that are doing the work, and so we want to support them with our wallets. We want to support them with our time and our volunteer hours.
I ran into someone who I used to work with years and years ago, and he said, "You know what? I'm running for city council. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to run for school board." So what advice? Like I said, it's that grassroots of where do you start for people who have these ideas? Because you have to, you have to know people, right? You have to build that support. Where do we go? How do we do this?
Well, certainly it would encourage anybody that is paying attention and concerned to run for office. Let's say you run for office and you don't win, but if you run, then people on the ballot that are maybe similar to you and your views, you're going to help increase turnout for them as well. So
start with having money.
Yeah. So
how much? I mean, because you always hear people, these big campaigns, even at the local level, people spend lots and lots of money. So do you need a lot of money to win?
Not necessarily. You know, we've just in this recent wave earlier this month where we saw a number of new voices and elected to various state houses and a few other larger offices around the country. A lot of these people didn't have a great deal of money, but they were very concerned about what's been going on. And so having those new voices in there is so important. And because I have Mara here and I want her to
eventually
soak up what we're saying, hey, maybe. You know, I think we're talking about working families today. I think it's so important for women to run. That's a very popular thing that people have been talking about lately. But I do think that women are very attuned to and understanding of what working families have to go to. Now, dads are too. I know that I am, but there's nobody like Mama. And so we do encourage women to
because
run.
A lot of times people feel that they can't run, or I don't know what to do, or I don't know. And I think it starts off too, Joey, with having that passion. So
Right.
my listeners, right? Listen, don't you think it starts there? If you have a passion for something and then trying to build that support.
That's
It's something,
right.
as we have Betty Burney here, you know, and she was a school board member, so
That's
she
right.
knows about that, right? About running and how you do it, building that support, having that passion for who you wanted, what you want to do, and how you want to do it.
You know, and there are, you mentioned money earlier, and that is something that, you know, is part of the political process in terms of campaigning. But there are offices you can run for to start out and to learn, and there are some offices you can run for that don't require a great deal of money, such as like Soil and Water Commission, for example.
Oh.
You know, that's a great nonpartisan office that many young people run for, and, you know, just doesn't require a great deal of money, but it'll give you some win or lose, some campaign experience, and if you win, it'll give you a little bit of legislative experience.
Good thought. And do you have to have that legislative experience? Because some people, sometimes when we go into these offices, whether it's a school board, a city council position, you really don't know how it works, how to pass a bill. It has to be read 3 times before the passage. You know, sometimes you don't have those basic skills, but those are things you can learn on the job, right? Or you
Those
learn
are
pretty
definitely
quickly.
things you can learn on the job, and, you know, sometimes it's not a bad thing to have a new voice